Fabulous. We are going to record this meeting so that we can share it with the delegates, for the people who are attending, as well as those who've signed up. So let's make a quick start. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this very short, but hopefully very informative Technocamps Techno-Teach talk, all about the digital technology qualification and the support and CPD offering that we're going to be providing to teachers all across Wales coming in the summer term, as well as in the next academic year. So really quick introduction from myself. My name is Stuart Powell. I'm the Assistant Director of Technocamps, and I'm a computer science lecturer in Swansea University. I've been working really closely with many of the key stakeholders involved in the development of the qualification, and it's just so nice to be in a situation, and I work with education professionals all across the UK and in many other regions of the world as well. And we should be really proud of having such a cutting edge digital qualification that we're going to be offering to our young people in secondary school. It couldn't have come at a worse time, I think. I think with the pandemic and the pressures that have been on us over the last year, it really has caught us at a really bad time to be effective at implementing it and preparing it. But actually it's a really great opportunity, and I hope by the end of today you're going to feel as excited by it and as looking forward to the opportunities that it'll give you to open up a different kind of world of digital skills and technologies to your students throughout the qualification. I'm also joined by Luke Clement, who's the operations manager. Luke, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, hello everyone. So I'm the operations manager, and I've been working with Stuart and the rest of the Technocamps team to put together support for this qualification since we heard about it first being implemented, and how we are going to support you guys with introducing this in schools beginning this September. So I guess we'll get stuck in with the meeting. We don't want it to drag on too long because we want to go have food today. So first of all, if you possibly some of you here haven't heard of Technocamps before, I thought I'd give a quick introduction about Technocamps. So we receive funding from the Welsh Government to support digital upskilling across Wales. We've also got funding from the European Social Fund, from WEFO. And Technocamps has been going since 2003. And primarily it was started as a way of getting a better pipeline for pupils into computer science and more people into computer science in Wales. And one of the main things that we've been doing since then is trying to support teachers with actually delivering computer science and ICT, and from now on digital technologies, in order to do so. So we have hubs at 5 universities across Wales, but we also work with the other universities, as you can see on the banner there. And we've engaged with over 60,000 pupils from over 350 schools in Wales since we've started. And the main thing I want to impress is that everything we do is completely free. So any workshops, any offering, CPD offering that we do is all free for the teachers and for the schools. Okay, so what we were going to cover today. So this is going to be very much an introduction to what we can do to support you guys with this qualification. So Stuart's going to briefly talk about the context of the qualification and why it's been brought in, and he knows more about that than I do, so I'll let him talk about that. Then we'll move on to what we've been planning to help support you both this summer and also for the coming, I guess, years, for next year and the coming years after that. So we'll also talk about a Techno-Teach community, which is something that we want to try and kind of give a support network for teachers to have a place that you can come and discuss and share resources. And then finally, we'll finish with a Q&A. So I think we'll keep questions till the end, just to make sure that we cover everything we need to in the time we've got. And then we'll answer any questions at the end. So first of all, I wanted to get some information from you guys. So we're going to do some polls. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with using polls in Zoom, but hopefully a nice box should appear once I launch the correct poll. So let's see if I'm able to do so. There we go.
And all of these teachers were sitting there thinking they wouldn't have to do anything this evening. Hopefully we'll see how many of you are actually with us. We'll see.
So hopefully now on your screen, you should see 3 questions. We just wanted to get some, let's change the slide, some idea of where you are and kind of how you're feeling about this qualification. That's very useful to see the responses to that. So I guess most of you are looking for resources to go along with teaching or support teaching this qualification. A lot with support with content, and most feeling unsure about the qualification. I think that's the general feeling that everyone has for this qualification at the moment, is the unsure and kind of, are we prepared to teach it in September? Okay, thanks for that. It's very interesting, and we'll use a lot of the feedback that we get from you guys today to inform what we are able to offer over this summer and also over the next year.
Fab. Yeah, thanks so much for that. As we said, it's been an interesting journey to get where we are. And I just want to really quickly just sort of set the scene a little bit. I know different people, if you've heard me speak about this before, you might have heard some of these kind of ideas before, and the kind of where this idea of a qualification in digital sort of came from and sort of sprung from. And without going too far into the past, obviously for many of us in the room have taught the ICT specification before, and there's been numerous stakeholder panels and a committee set up that have deemed it not fit for purpose. And I think we were at a turning point in terms of digital qualifications in Wales, and it was so nice to work with all of the key stakeholders all around Wales, and a massive thank you. I know Qualifications Wales couldn't get someone here today, unfortunately, because of other meetings, but the Qualification Wales really have been a driving force for moving this qualification development forward and supporting and looking very carefully at ensuring students have a fit for purpose qualifications and ready for what we want to teach. The idea of digital technology existed far before the idea of making it a qualification at level 2 and level 3, but actually has this idea of having a broad church digital-based qualifications, providing a learner with a good understanding of the technology they use throughout all parts of their lives. The report, which some of you may be aware of, the Royal Society report in 2012, the shutdown or restart, which was, goodness, almost 10 years ago now, which is scary to say. It feels like it was only yesterday. Talked about this idea of, digital education across the UK and looking at how we can improve it and sort of move it forward. And this Venn diagram for me always sort of stood out. The overlap between what we consider the nouns, the subject names we use to describe these subjects: computer science, IT or ICT. It's an interesting conversation there, which I haven't got time for right now, with the C being added, and also digital literacy. And the fact that these things overlap, it's always sort of a challenge to get a qualification within these, because there is naturally, because of the way that these subjects work together and they sort of come together to enhance each other, it's actually really difficult to define what should be in particular qualifications. And I think what's been really interesting about digital technology, we've actually managed to make it so that the qualification is broad church and hits on all of these areas. It links really nicely with the current computer science specification. It's something that could be taken alongside digital technology. I appreciate that probably isn't going to happen in many schools in the first instance, but it's definitely a possibility. And it links so nicely with the progression steps as part of the new area of learning experience in science and technology, as well as the cross-cutting digital literacy, as it is on my slide, with the DCF, the digital competence framework, which is embedded across. And I think these links are what really enhance where we are with this. Can you move forward for me, Luke? Thank you. So the qualification, as I said, this formally started back in December 2018 with qualifications of report delivering digital. I think some of the teachers in the room were actually involved in actually the report being written, as well as actually the announcement of the report. And the key recommendation was to support and drive forward this transformational digital-based qualification for our teachers as well as our pupils in schools to really pick up these, to really develop their digital skills ready for the 21st century. It's been a long journey. It's taken a long time to get where we are now. Qualifications leading it, bringing together lots of key stakeholders, teachers, academics, industrial support from all across Wales and the UK to look at what this qualification would look like. WJEC then picked up this qualifications and put together the specification, which I'm going to touch on very briefly. Today, hopefully for those who are interested in here, you may have already attended the WJEC's qualification brief, where they talked a little bit about the units. There's a lot more detail to unpick, I feel, with some of those units. And I think as we talk about the support that we're going to be offering this summer, hopefully the competencies around particularly Unit 2, which we're going to talk about, I think those CPD opportunities are going to be really exciting for some people. So we have this brand new specification, which as they always do, may bring a whole load of more questions and things to unpick, and questions that we don't always have the answers to, but we're working with everybody involved to get these answers, and bringing together then how do we get from a qualification specification into something that we really can teach in the classroom and support. There are software requirements, or the need to have compatible software. So in terms of the development of some of the digital assets, as well as things such as the animation and games development, there's things such as the Adobe Creative Cloud, which you've probably heard about the announcement from Hub about how they're making that available at a very cost-effective way of getting Creative Cloud. And I believe our friend Tom from Adobe is actually joining us this afternoon in the call. Adobe have actually been really supportive of the qualification all the way through, and in fact have made a huge effort in ensuring that all of the animation-based support that we're going to be offering has been supported by them and others who really have a good feel for what Animate can do, so we give the best sort of quality CPD to you that we can. As well as Adobe, we also have a requirement around the games development, around Gamemaker, where we have actually been really lucky that Gamemaker have been extremely excited to work with the educators all across Wales. And I think it's a great opportunity to get a very powerful tool into the classroom. Now, I'm sure there's some of you sitting there remembering Gamemaker 8.1. I can't see many people's faces. Anybody remember Gamemaker 8.1? It looks like it was made for like Windows 97. I can't remember what date it actually came out, but it didn't age very well, put it like that. The interface was kind of clunky and it was quite difficult. I think Gamemaker Studio 2, if you haven't had a experience with it yet, we'll talk. Our links later on will explain a bit how to get involved with that quite easily as an educator. You'll be a little bit surprised at actually the how it's moved forward. So I just want to really quickly then, so that's the idea behind it. It's about preparing our students, giving them a different, more of a maybe application-based or real-world feeling for digital technology and the way it's really affecting our lives. Now, the qualification itself split into 3 units. And again, I'm going to skim over this today, but happy to talk more about this in detail in the future. Split into 3 units. Unit 1, which is your sort of, if you will, standard theoretical unit. It will be done by an on-screen assessment, so there will be no paper-based assessment for this. It will all be on-screen. So Unit 1 is the digital world, which includes a lot of the theory-based topics for the unit. And then there's 2 units that follow that. Unit 2, which is an NEA around digital practices. This is the unit that we'll be spending a lot of time talking about over the summer and hopefully preparing yourselves with the competencies around Gamemaker and Animate, which even for myself and the team at Technocamps, some of these skills are things that we might have done in previous lives, but not something we do on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot of little things to get used to and understand of how they all come together. And as well as Unit 3, which is a sort of a smaller NEA, smaller unit, which is assessed again by NEA, where there is this idea of creating a digital marketing campaign, so social media, understanding marketing trends, and then developing a marketing resource or output for that, which in this case will actually, or the sample material we've seen is actually a video output. So let me just delve into a little bit of detail in terms of Unit 2. As I said, it's a unit which is going to be examined by non-examined assessments, so in classroom. The rules and regulations have changed a little bit about those. For those who are very familiar with the current NEA in computer science, you know, there's no internet access, for example. That's not the case with this NEA. It's also significantly bigger. If I remember correctly, the current NEA in computer science is 20 hours. This is a 45-hour NEA, so it's a really big, substantial amount of work. You could split it, if you will, into 2 main sort of parts that the students need to do, or 3 really. They get given a set of data, and based on this set of data, they have to analyze this raw data from sort of survey feedback or collected about statistics around different areas. This is a data set that will be released year on year in a similar way that the NEA is released for computer science, or the problem is changed every year. The students had to analyze this data set, identify key trends or key products or ideas that they could develop a target audience around to sort of support or answer maybe a particular problem that they've identified. And then they have to develop this digital product. The digital product takes the form of a web page or a website, which is a collection of several pages. And within that website, they are required to produce a supporting piece of digital, a digital product, which would either be, so there is a choice here, it'll either be an animation, and the animation needs to be created in a compatible format with Adobe Animate, or a game, and with the game being in a compatible format with Gamemaker 2. So there is a pathway here for students. And when the qualification was coming together, just to give a little bit of background on this idea of having the choices, I think, was quite important. We appreciate that in the first running, or maybe even the first few runnings of this, it may be the case you have to pick one or the other. But I really do think there is enough scope and enough space within the qualification to get cohort of students actually choosing which product or which kind of development they want to do, which I think is a quite exciting part about this. Just to touch a little bit on the software requirements, I know Tom has put in the information from Hub around the Creative Cloud. Obviously, this is one thing that we had no control over, and we've committed from the beginning to sort of to support teachers, as we've done. Always supported teachers in this kind of digital work, and particularly computer science over the last couple of years. And this restriction on software was developed as part of the sort of specification with WJAC around moderation. The difference here means that you have the biggest difference between, or the biggest driving factor for them in regards to specifying this compatibility was around the fact that there will be no submission of evidence by screenshots. And I'm sure you've heard this before. If you've taught IT, it's, you do something, you screenshot it, you do something, you screenshot it. I actually witnessed a database lesson only last week where, you're going through the process of them going through creating tables or importing tables. A student misses one sort of screenshot that they require as evidence, and all of a sudden they've got to do this all over again. So this is a barrier. I appreciate someone just put in the chat that cost is a barrier. The Gamemaker costing is something we can talk about this, and maybe not for this point in time. But Gamemaker have made their education license free and available to all educators in Wales. So you can have a perpetual license as an educator for forever with Gamemaker, which is very nice. It doesn't let you export into HTML by using that license, but again, this is something we're currently in talks with Gamemaker about making available. Animate, obviously being part of the Creative Cloud, it is a professional level piece of software that is extremely expensive if you've ever looked to purchase it on even an education setting or personally on a year-by-year basis. But as I said, we've worked really closely with Adobe, really closely with Hub to make sure that actually that this software can be at the most affordable it can, and to get it into the hands of as many teachers and students as possible. Details of this can be found on the Hub website that Tom linked in the chat. Just to pick up on, I'm reading the chats, I'm going along. Simon talked about progression to A level means you have to focus on game design. You could look at that. There's quite a lot of the techniques that are going to be required from an animation point of view that will need to be driven into the game design at a higher level. So I don't think it's an absolute sticking point, but I do think I don't know. Every time we do a poll on this, I think last time we had 60% of teachers looking at Gamemaker and 40% at Animate. I do think it's quite important to give students that opportunity to actually use the software to actually make that choice where possible, so that they can do what they want to do. Adam said about the software being used not through Hub. You can purchase Adobe as a school. It's at a slightly higher cost. I think having a conversation with Tom from Adobe would be a good way. But this has been put through Hub in a way to ensure that it can be accessed by as many schools and as many pupils as possible. So do you go to the next slide, Luke? And then just to summarize where we are here, that obviously the final unit then, so that was all of unit 2. Unit 3 is this communication idea, developing social/online marketing campaign, producing digital assets, and then creating report and video to support that. Somebody asked about whether Dreamweaver is part of it. you actually get access to all of Creative Cloud through Hub. So you're not just purchasing one piece of software. It's an annual license per student or per teacher, and that license gives you license to the whole of Creative Cloud. So they have the suite of all of the suite that's available, which is a really great asset to have. Fab. Okay, so I think we'll move on this. So obviously there's a lot to take in here. I could spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about the qualifications. Does anybody have any particular questions or doubts? I know I've answered some in the chat. Are there any burning questions about the qualification? I know access to software is one. We've worked really hard to do as much as we can to support that. Is there any progress on Hub being able to subsidize Gamemaker? There are ongoing conversations, and as I said, we've had some, from a Technocamps point of view, but as an educator point of view, had some really exciting conversations around Gamemaker and then wanting to do more with educators in Wales. So I think there's certainly progress to be made there, Simon, and hopefully we'll make that in the coming weeks and months. It also mentions editing images within Unit 2. So what's interesting, Carly, and I think this is the advantage of the way that the software has worked out. And with Creative Cloud, the ability to use the other pieces of software such as Photoshop and Illustrator to support you when creating your animations or creating your website is a key sort of stepping stone. You can actually do an awful lot within Animate without going outside of Animate, which is really nice. So you can get something started very quickly. But this idea of being able to use all of the tools within Creative Cloud is also possible as well. What the current requirements that are interesting is around this idea of the final submission. And there's lots of conversation to have here, which would be better placed in an in-depth CPD session. But the work will be moderated, and I said assessed externally by submission of the final output. So if you're doing Unit 2 and you're producing a website and an animation, the final output would be your website with your animation embedded within it. So that would include the MP4 file and the HTML5 web pages and site that would go in one package. That would be one output. You'd have your report and you'd have your logs, which we're quite used to when we're doing these kind of assessments. The part that you're not used to is submitting the project files. So the project files of the web page, which could just be the web pages that are developed outside of a IDE, but you could use Dreamweaver as an example. I think many schools who will have this through Creative Cloud will maybe choose to use this. So you'd submit the Dreamweaver project file. You would also submit the Animate project file as well to support the animation, the final animation that was developed and submitted as part of the qualification. Exactly the same would apply with Gamemaker, but it would be the Gamemaker project file rather than the Animate project file. Fab, I think I've answered everything. I would like to get some practice data from WG for Unit 2 for the end of this teaching year. And there is currently a specification, a SAMS out for the whole qual. The SAM does include a data set. The data set, if I believe, has got quite a lot to do with surfing in it. And I know some of the sample material that was released from WJC, which I believe is now on the secure site, has some Gamemaker and animation examples around using this data, analyzing it, and then making a digital product around surfing. So yes, there are some examples out there. I think the data analytics is one of the areas that I'm most familiar with. I think the data analytics aren't it's not that challenging. It's about, I think, in thinking about preparing students for that, it's about providing them with the tools and techniques within Excel to actually understand what does it mean to cleanse data, what does it mean to summarize it, what does it mean to create a pivot table, and then once you get the data itself can be, you could probably make your own data set quite easily. Also, what we've also been working on quite a lot is actually coming up with some sort of trends that you could have. So myself and the team have brainstormed some ideas around, what would be the kind of trends that you could find in data when sort of surveying 8 to 12-year-olds around eating habits or digital consumption, which I think is quite an interesting thing to look at, particularly with a qualification like this. And that is something that, we will be putting together and offering as part of the CPD. Fab. So I believe I've answered lots of questions. If there's none I've answered, please feel free to re-ask or bring them to my attention. Luke, do you want to talk about actually the support that we're going to have then?
Yeah, so I saw a few of you asking about workshops in the chat. So I'm going to go through everything we're offering and as support for you guys with this qualification from now on. So first of all, this summer, we decided that we would focus on supporting you with the Gamemaker, animation, and the web development aspects of it, so the Unit 2 topics. So we've put together a blended learning course that I'll go through on the next slide. And then the plan for next academic year, so starting in September, we'll be offering a much wider course that covers a lot more of the qualification, so Unit 1 topics, as well as Unit 2, and some of Unit 3 as well. And then, so that's the CPD side of things. And then from actual workshops that we would offer for your pupils, we want to push to do in-class workshops for Gamemaker, Animate, and Dreamweaver from the 17th of May. So you can contact us and request workshops. Now, I know that not everyone, it's not going to be viable for everyone to do in-class workshops, but I think that we all know that actually being physically in the class with pupils will be a more effective way of teaching them and delivering this. But we will also have virtual offerings available to for those who can't facilitate physical ones. So for this coming summer term, we've put together this course covering game development, animation, and web development. So it'll be using, obviously, Gamemaker, Animate, and Dreamweaver for the web development aspect. So the way that this works, we've been trialing this year, since everything's gone virtual, blended learning courses. We used to do lots of kind of long-term physical, in-person courses throughout the year. And obviously, we can't really do that in a nice way in the current circumstances. So we've changed our approach, and what we've done is essentially had pre-session work. We have these live sessions, but we have work in between that maybe is the work that doesn't have to be done in person, that you don't have to be led through it. And not in person, doesn't have to be done where you're instructed and led through it. And then focused on the live sessions are the things that you might need more help with. So these sessions, I've got the live session dates on the slide there. So they're every couple of weeks. And the sessions will be happening from 4:15 to 5:45, so an hour and a half long. We try to find a good time, enough time after school and before you have your food, hopefully, to fit that in. So these will be virtual. And the way that we've been formatting this is what we call a fortnightly format. It's a nice rolls off the tongue name for it. So the first week, so each topic has a block of 2 weeks. And in the first week, on the Monday of the first week, we release any work and resources. So it might be instructions on installing the software or things you need to have ready before a live session. It could be certain skills that we think you could do on your own by following video tutorials or reading kind of around the topic a bit more. And then that pre-session work, we'd expect you to finish. It's usually quite minimal, because we don't ask too much in the pre-session work. And you would complete that before the Thursday of the second week of the block, where we would actually do a live session on the topic that we are looking at. Some topics might have more than one block, as here. So, for example, game development has two-week blocks. So there's 2 live sessions, and same with animation and web development, because there's quite a lot of content in there. And just from my own experience trying to learn these things over the past few months, I feel like they do require a bit of more extra help with these, because if you look at them completely without any instruction, you just go in and try to learn these things, they can be a bit overwhelming, because these are kind of industry standard. I've played games that have been developed with Gamemaker, and I'm sure we've all seen animations that have been developed using Animate. So it takes a bit of instruction and guidance to go through these. And then
can we just go back a second? I think just to highlight a point here, it's actually a really difficult thing to get right at the moment, and we're trying to be as flexible as possible with our CPD. We found this effective approach of actually having, like we've all done, this blended approach with our students, but trying to find an effective means of delivering I would say quite technical CPD is certainly a challenge, and it is definitely the case. You need to carve time out to be able to do this, and I say that with absolute recognition and admiration for the amount of work that all of us have on at the moment, particularly around assessment. But what I think is really important, and what we found quite effective with this, is this sort of 2-weekly cycle. Once you start it, although it might feel like a lot of work to begin with, that actually it's something that can feel quite natural and can give you that motivation to actually continue working on some of these ideas outside of sitting in a classroom environment or sitting on your own on a Saturday evening trying to figure out what on earth is going on. And this community that Luke touched on at the beginning, I think is going to be super important now more than ever to get people, teachers supporting and sharing their best practice to ensure that, you know, we are giving these opportunities and directly developing ourselves, but giving these opportunities to our students. Sorry, Luke.
That's okay. So all this information that I'm going through now will be emailed out to everyone that was registered on the Eventbrite event. And it will be, I think, available on a news article that we've got on the website. So this is what we were going to offer for beginning in September, so next academic year. As you can see, it's a much wider course covering a lot more of the topics. We tried, so we've been working on this since maybe, well, it must have been about April last year, I think. We tried to pick out the topics that we thought maybe were new to most teachers, that weren't really in ICT, or that kind of might be difficult to teach or we would need more support with. And I think we've tried to cover quite a lot, as much of the qualification as we could, and fit it into the actual academic year, because otherwise we'd be going for 2 years doing this entire course. And when we actually deliver this CPD, so the team have been working on a lot of resources surrounding this. We might not be able to cover absolutely everything that we actually develop, but any resources that we make will be freely available to everyone. We'll put them on our website, and you can download any resources that we have actually developed around this. And we'll continue to do that throughout this summer and throughout the next year as well. And I want to make sure that you're all aware, we will make sure they're all available in Welsh as well. Even if that means that I am the one translating in my spare time, I will make sure that everything is available in Welsh, because I know how important that is. So
just to touch on one of the questions. So in terms of the course, if you go back, I know it's a little hard to see, it's hard to fit all on one slide. We've gone for a kind of a 4-unit approach, and we've tried to make it as non-linear as possible. That is, so teachers don't, you know, that the expectation that teachers can drop in and out as much as possible. But we've sectioned it, or we've planned it now in this style where we have a sort of a unit base. So there's 4 kind of units in our mind, and I would say that most of the units are quite linear. So we would expect or like students, teachers to sign up for units. We appreciate that people wouldn't necessarily be able to attend all of the units. You can also all of the sessions within each of the units. You can also pick and choose which unit that you want to do. So you might feel very confident with, say, a unit A, which is all around the theoretical topics. Well, there's some really interesting stuff in there about systems development cycles, which I think is, there's lots of exciting things we can do and bring some of the kind of things we're doing in the department in the universities at the moment. But yeah, you can pick and choose and sign up to the units that you think will be most benefit you, or sign up to all of them and see how that goes. It's been the biggest challenge I think we faced is actually being able to put something on this summer that's as effective as it can be without having to run the whole course. And every teacher that we've spoken to and all of our colleagues that we've sort of had these conversations, we have said that Unit 2 is going to be a big focus for them. Obviously, with Year 10s starting this qualification officially in September. So that's why we've put this sort of precursor unit. It hasn't got the interrogating data and data analysis in it, but that's something that we can cover and will cover in the future. Thank you, Luke.
Yep. And the main reason we wanted to put in that choice is we didn't want to have to force everyone, if you couldn't fit in or couldn't find the time to complete the whole course. You know, you should be able to choose which units you want. And obviously some of you will cover the Unit C this summer. I would say though, by the time we do this again next year, we'll probably have delivered these workshops quite a lot and kind of refined what we are doing and created more resources. So it might actually look a lot different if you did want to come on the course again and refresh what you've done this summer, next summer or next spring. Yeah. Okay. And so one of the things we've been doing with the courses this year, and what we've always done is there's always been a form of assessment. Now, I didn't want that to be the case for this course, but what we want is to encourage is that as you're covering these topics with us on these courses, that any work that you create, that we encourage you to share that with everyone, so that we actually build up a bank of resources for everyone to use. And just, I feel like that isn't done enough in general. It's very hard to find a nice bank of resources where you can just go and find topics for, find resources for certain topics. So we want to encourage that, and that will be what we encourage you to do, rather than putting official assessments from us and us giving feedback on that. So what we are going to do, hopefully, is we'll be facilitating these courses through Microsoft Teams. So I've set up a Microsoft team where we'll use this as a central kind of community place for digital technologies, and possibly in future, maybe wider offering that Technocamps offers, computer science related courses and so on. So that's our ambition. We really want to create a network of support for you guys. I realize I keep saying technologies, and I meant to say technology. It's something that I've been doing for the last 3 months. Technology, I have to keep saying it. Okay, so as well as the CPD offerings that I mentioned, we really would like to push workshops for your classes, because I think it's all well and good us delivering to you as teachers, but actually seeing us and how we would deliver the content that we've developed to the pupils just gives it's just easier to follow by example. I think that's how I learn best. I like to see how someone else would do something, and then I'd learn from that. So it's kind of extra CPD for you, as well as pupils having the opportunity to develop those skills themselves throughout the summer in preparation for you beginning the course next year. So as I said before, we'd like these to be physical in-class workshops as much as possible. However, we know that might not be possible in all cases, so we'll have a virtual offering as well. For this, it's important that obviously you'll need to have the software available to you in the class. So you'll need to have Gamemaker, Animate, or Dreamweaver available for the pupils, so that we can actually instruct them on using it. There is one small caveat. So due to the conditions of our funding, there are certain regions in Wales where we have to prioritise those regions over others, but we will do our best to accommodate all workshop requests, no matter which regions you are from. And if you are interested in doing these, booking these workshops with us, then you can contact info@technocamps.com. And Jo, who's in the call today, will do her best to kind of sort your requests and get you to the right people, the right regions, and so on, which hubs we should be directing you to. Okay, so we're going to do another quick poll to see kind of where you are currently with planning or preparing for the digital technology qualification. So we just wanted to get an idea from you, when you're planning to begin teaching this. Some of you might have already started teaching this to Year 9, or teaching certain topics of the course. And it kind of give us an idea of where you're at, and kind of help us inform our support.
Yeah, and while a couple of you obviously read through the poll and answer this question, I wonder if there's any other questions that are coming up in chat. I appreciate we've already talked for almost an hour, so we don't want to overtake too much time, and it's very hard to. We want to use this as very much a springboard into the offering that we're going to have. And I think with the team that's been set up, with the resources that will be made available through there, and then the CPD offering during the summer, I think there's a plethora of support to really hopefully feel that you really can get your teeth into some of it and get your students prepared. I know that there's sort of questions. The thing I'm really interested in is those teachers who are already starting to teach us, and I can see the results coming. The majority of people have already started, or a good number have already started teaching their Year 9 some of these topics. I believe, Tim, if I'm not wrong, try and scroll down. It might be there. Someone just said they are PGC students started teaching Unit 1 with their Year 9s, which is great. So one thing from my perspective, as more this poll has been answered, one of the key things that stands out to me from looking at preparation for this qualification is this ability to sorry, my brain's gone blank. This ability to actually the pre-content that you would deliver. If you think about the qualification around, computer science, we've incorporated, and as part of the A1E, there's a lot of coding, computational thinking, using tools such as Python and Scratch to develop these skills. I've just realized, I think the chat's saying that you can't opt out of question 4. Okay, that's an oversight on our part. You might just, if you want to opt out of question 4, just to make it so it's easy to look at. Can you just click digital data and analytics, which is the first option? This is a IT fail, Luke. What digital skills have you used when creating this poll?
That's a Zoom issue, I think, rather than myself.
A Zoom issue. I think it's funny. It's a piece of technology that doesn't have conditional questions, which is not so good. That was an oversight on both of our parts. So yeah, if you haven't got an answer to question 4, please just put data analytics. So going back to what I was saying about the pre-work, we do a significant amount of preparation in sort of Key Stage 3, preparing students for these qualifications. And I think it's really a challenge actually to think about going into a brand new set of skills like using Animate or Gamemaker, although some of these skills we already teach in some schools as part of our curriculum, but actually there's a lot of extra stuff here. And I think it is going to take several years to progress and get students with the skills into a really nice position, ready to take it. And I think it sits very nicely within the current qualification offering, and hopefully will sit very nicely within the qualification offering as we go into looking at qualifications for the new curriculum, which is obviously going to be a really interesting part of the next part of the journey as we kind of continue forward with the Curriculum 21 implementation. So thank you for entering that. Any interesting things you'd like to note on that, Luke?
It was interesting that pretty much everyone is going to be delivering this from this September. It's interesting to see that, given how many were unsure or felt unprepared at the start. So hopefully the support that we're offering will help get more people feeling more confident when they're going to start delivering this in September. Okay, so there's only a few more things I wanted to speak about. We're getting close to the amount of time we were going to have. But as I said earlier, we're going to facilitate the course through Microsoft Teams. But what I would like is to have as many people as we could in the same place, sharing resources, regardless of if you're on the course or not. And I know what's going to happen now is I'm going to get lots of requests to join this Microsoft team as we're on the call, which is fine. I was prepared for that. But if you'd like to join the Microsoft team, where we are planning to hopefully have as many of us working on resources and just adding resources we have to share across all of Wales, hopefully, we'll have a nice bank of resources for delivering this in beginning of September. Then that's the link at the top that you can click on to join that. And then the second thing is we are arranging these Techno-Teach meets, so kind of a network of support. It's a bi-monthly Zoom call, and by bi-monthly I mean every couple of months, so about every half term, where we will have a meeting chaired by one of the teachers who I believe is in here. I think I saw Adam Spate from Mary Immaculate High in Cardiff. And it'll be a place for anyone in the network to be able to add things to the agenda and just discuss topics that are relevant at the moment to computer science and IT and digital technology and so on. So these meetings or news of this event will be on our Eventbrite page, and they'll be on all our social media pages and in our newsletters and so on. The link to the first meeting that we're hosting on the May the 20th is that bit.ly link there on the slide. And as I said, all this information will be sent out in an email tomorrow to everyone that's registered on this Eventbrite.
Can you go back a slide for 2 seconds? Sorry, Luke.
Yeah.
I put the link for the team in the chat. I think I got it right. Watch me have got it wrong. We'll see. I should have copied this beforehand. Cool.
Okay. And the other thing is, obviously, we are computer science as well as just digital technology or IT. So we do offer a lot of workshops, other workshops a bit for schools, Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4, and various other things. So we've got some nice Key Stage 3 workshops that you can have a look at. Some nice one we've been developing throughout the pandemic is the Catch the Crooks digital forensics one. It's quite a nice workshop where they work together to try and solve puzzles and find out who committed a crime and so on. There's some machine learning one where they get a Crest Award by doing the workshops and so on. And so if you're interested in any of these Key Stage 3 workshops or Key Stage 4 workshops that will support with GCSE computer science, then again, you can get in touch and request that, and we'll get back to you. We've also developed one with the Welsh back to try and develop their skills they need for the Enterprise Challenge. And again, all these will be available in English or Welsh, and we can deliver workshops in whichever language you would like. Well, in either of those languages. I can't do French or any other foreign languages. So, I mean, we've had some Q&As throughout this. I don't know if I think we've got some time now. The only other thing was to sign up, and well, there was another poll. So maybe we'll go on through these slides, and then we'll see how much time we've got left for Q&A at the end. So if you do want to sign up to these courses, there are forms, so Google Forms that we put links to in the slides. And again, this will be in the emails sent out tomorrow. We've got a lot of other events, not just workshops and CPD. In the summer, we're hoping to run a STEM Academy, which I guess these things are things we'd like, if you could, promote to your pupils, but don't require any kind of commitment or input from you as teachers. So that's the STEM Academy that will be running in the summer. We've got a Home of the Future competition where your pupils will work on developing games, and they can win, I think it was £2,000 for the school and £100 for themselves for developing a game around energy efficiency in the home. So have a look at our social media pages and our website for more information on that. We've also got these Techno Talks, which is a podcast we've started to do with careers for 11 to 18-year-olds, and maybe how it's podcasts from famous people, or not famous people, people in STEM careers, and how they got to where they are today. And we've also got our after-school coding clubs that run every week during term time. So we're going to finish with one more poll, just some feedback on today's session, I guess, and we'll have some questions and answers. Oh, we'll do the question and answers first, then we'll do the poll. That makes more sense. Right. Any more questions and answers?
Yeah, so there's been quite a lot in the chat. I've tried to answer them. Looking at the sessions in September, and we are still looking at using a blended model in September, but as I answered in the chat, I think the same as for pupils are the in-classroom sessions that we hope to offer as workshops regarding the sort of Gamemaker and Animate sessions. I think there's such an advantage to getting teachers into a classroom to develop these skills together. So we will hope to look and explore opportunities to do that. Currently, we plan to offer the full module in the springtime. So hopefully we'll be able to get something physical, potentially, or optional physical sessions involved then. There's a couple more questions. I think one thing I'd like to, as you're sort of to think about this is, I appreciate that this is, and I said this at the beginning, to sort of kind of go full circle. This is been a really difficult time. And I think it's been a challenging time at the best of times, and to have a new qualification. Obviously, someone mentioned that obviously the ICT qualification is not available for Year 10 students from next academic year. So if you want to offer digital qual, you do have to either offer digital technology, maybe as an alternative, although there is a lot of ethos that's gone into this, that it's not just a replacement, if that makes sense. So it's all about giving you as much support as we possibly can. I think maybe one slide that will be worth putting on. So all the information will be made available on the team site. Do you want to put the link for the team back on, Luke, and just check that I've got the right one? I'll repost that in. Melanie asked an interesting question about what units people are going to be delivering first. There's quite a lot of answers going into the chat. Someone said that hubcamwe.net won't be accepted. I'll go and check that now. You do have to put it in all lowercase, which is worth mentioning. Google's check for emails, you have to do all lowercase letters in the Google form. Maybe give that a shot. I think there's lots of opportunities here in terms of obviously approaching some of the new Unit 1 topics quite early on with your students. Yeah, Google insists that email addresses are lowercase because they're non-case sensitive on their domains. There's a lot of opportunities to offer Unit 1 sessions for your pupils, but also getting them started on the ideas. There was an interesting question asked around using Creative Cloud at home, with Unit 2 and Unit 3 both being NEAs. Is there a value add of students actually having access to this software outside of the classroom? And I really think there is a value add. Like with many of the NEAs, and I go back to the one I know most familiar, which is the computer science NEA as it is now, this concept of students being able to develop their idea and their understanding of things they've struggled with outside of the classroom is absolutely fine. They obviously can't bring it in with them, but to test out ideas, to test out new styles of animation, to test, is this idea of a bouncing ball or whatever I'm going to do going to work, and how do I achieve this? And to take those skills that they've practiced themselves into their NEA is absolutely fine. So I can see a massive advantage of having students have this software available to them as part of this one package. Are there any other questions that anybody has? I know we've probably covered a lot of information. The one question I have, I know there's been many talks. WJC have done quite an extensive talk in terms of the qualification themselves. One thing we haven't penciled in at the moment is a date to really focus on the qualification and to really nitpick through some of the detail of that. Is this something people would be keen on having from a sort of a practical sense as an overview session? Or do people think that actually doing the competencies and actually learning the skills is going to be better? Would anybody, can I just say, I don't know if you can do this easy, if anybody knows what a thumbs up reaction is, would anybody be really keen to attend a Technocamps-led session around the qualification itself and sort of unpicking some more of the skills inside it? Just want to see roughly how many people put their thumbs up to give me an idea. There's quite a few thumbs going up. It's something that is certainly, it's hard to fit it in, if that makes sense. We're certainly doing skills, but if there are people who want to talk about the qualification, we certainly can. Fabulous, great. Quite a few, interesting to see the ones out there. Quite a few there. We can certainly do that. So to finish off then, are there any other questions? So someone asked, sorry, I missed this, Oshin. Is Adobe Animate mandatory? So if you look carefully at the specification, you could say that Adobe Animate isn't mandatory in the fact that in the way that you create the animation isn't important. However, from a submission point of view, you do have to submit a project file that is compatible with Adobe Animate. It must be able to be openable by Adobe Animate and show the skills and technique that the student has used to make the animation that they've created. So I am not aware of any tool that allows you to export in an FLA file that's supportable through Animate. So I think you're in that situation where Adobe Animate is going to be one of the main pieces of software. That doesn't mean you couldn't teach some of the skills using another one, but in terms of the NEA itself, I think we are kind of in that position. There isn't software that's compatible to the point that you can do this export in. Good question. Any other questions? Fab, as we're wrapping this up, Luke, do you want to launch the final poll just so we can get people to just get some feedback from today? Are there any other programs than Gamemaker that can make compatible files? I think in the same way, we're in a situation where the Gamemaker 2 project files very much are, what's the word I'm looking for? Proprietary files that have been specifically developed by Gamemaker and the team around that. So it is the case that, again, from a games development point of view, if you want to submit the NEA through that, then actually you will need to use Gamemaker. What is interesting though, and I keep falling back on this, from a key stage 3 or a pre-skills perspective, you certainly can develop the game development skills, the animation skills. If you're doing Gamemaker, some of the programming skills required to do some simple interactions, you can develop all of those outside of Gamemaker, and those skills can be transferred in. I appreciate that, of course, if you're going to teach this and you want to prepare, particularly at year 9, for example, you're going to want to be using the software that you're likely going to use in the qualification. In terms of preparing resources for key stage 3, Luke, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I guess when you mentioned key stage 3 earlier, someone mentioned how are they? I think it was Russ. What would you do to kind of support with these skills when you can't afford Adobe for the key stage 3? But I think what you could do is just think about the kind of the skills that you're teaching in Animate and Gamemaker, and then what alternatives are there that are free that you can develop those skills in a different way. Obviously, they're not going to be used to using the software that they have to use in GCSE, but kind of what are the skills that they're doing in Gamemaker and being assessed on, and how can I apply that to maybe some free software like Make Code Arcade or Scratch and so on. And I'm not 100% on alternatives for animation, but I'm sure there's other animation kind of skills that you can develop in free software as a precursor to what you'd be developing in Key Stage 3. I guess that's how I would approach it if we were going to develop that. As part of the Technoteach community page, the file structure, I've already got in a folder ready for Key Stage 3 resources. Obviously, we haven't been focusing yet on Key Stage 3 because we've been looking at Key Stage 4 and actually delivering the sessions for Key Stage 4. But there is room for, if anyone does actually develop Key Stage 3 resources that will be leading on to this course, then they have that opportunity to put that in those folders so we can share Key Stage 3 resources as well. So that's just as important. I think that's one of the downfalls of the computer science GCSE is that there's not enough time for teachers to develop their skills in Key Stage 3, and maybe not enough attention gets paid to that. So hopefully we can do that from year 7 up, start building those skills ready for GCSE.
And to add into that then, this idea of how these skills link, and I talked about this slightly at the beginning around the context, how these skills that are going to be examined as part of this qualification actually link with the science and technology AOLE and some of the AOLEs more broadly. I think there's a really exciting opportunity there as you're working on your school level curriculums to think about how these currently links. This is obviously, it's not the newest qual or one, it's one of the newest sets of qualifications that have come out as we move into the implementation of the new curriculum. It's likely to change maybe as we go into the full implementation in 2025, but there's certainly opportunities here to explore the link between the curriculum, the new curriculum and the areas of learning space with a qualification like this. And there's an exciting opportunity there in terms of the development of other qualifications that could be of a similar form or a similar topic that may sit alongside or sort of work together with Digitech. One thing I'd like to say, in terms of shortening it, I was in very many meetings. I just want to caveat this final point. I was in very many meetings at the beginning. People started referring to digital technology as DT. I don't know how all the other teachers feel in the call, but I feel that if we start calling another subject DT, we might find ourselves in a little bit of a hole and nobody will know what we're actually talking about. So I've kind of forced myself to start calling it Digitech instead of DT, hopefully to avoid any confusion. I think other people have picked up on that as well, which I think is really nice. And I think sticking to Digitech as the shortened actually is a really great way of doing it. I'd like to take this final opportunity to thank you all for attending. I really appreciate how busy it is and how much of a stressful time it is at the moment, and if there's any support that myself, Luke, or any of the Techno team can offer, please come and speak to us. Please send us an email. We're always happy to help, and we really look forward to welcoming some of you onto our course in the summer and supporting the implementation of Digitech all around Wales. Thank you all.
Thank you.